Well, good morning and welcome to Garden with Peggy. Tommy has me off to the side.
These have all.
Wait, Tommy has me off to the side here. Apparently, that makes making the shorts easier. So the little shorts that show up on YouTube and Reels and TikTok, whatever, are easier to make if I'm off to the side. Now, very conveniently, I decided that we needed some new background pictures. So I made an effort to find shots that I could take that would make good background pictures. And I think this makes a great background picture, but this is from the cemetery across the street. And I was very impressed with the number of daffodils that they painted, that they planted right across the street from my house. And this particular configuration of me off to the left, very conveniently, it's a sign. How cool is that? So yeah, that's pretty good. So so that worked out. Let me give you the phone number. Can you show us the phone number, please? Do I have it here? Okay, it's 888-399-7344. And we have 4 open lines. We'll be here for an hour. If you call late in the show and it's approaching the top of the next hour, not a problem. We'll just, stay until we answer everybody's question. That's one of the advantages of doing this from home. There is no show following me immediately, so we can stay on as long as necessary because I want everybody to have their questions answered. So if you suddenly think of a question at 5 minutes of 11, don't hesitate to call. We will be happy to answer your question. So please remember to hit follow and subscribe wherever it is that you're watching, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or any of those other places. You can, and look at the new scrolling thing on the bottom. Tommy added that. Has all kinds of information, which is new. As we have said many times before, this has been a total learning experience. And so this is new. So here we go. So let's, again, the phone number is 888-399-7344. That's Peggy, Pegi. So give us a call. But for now, let's do This Week at Tiny Farm because there's a lot going on. Can we get to the beginning of those? I don't know what. Oh, okay. So just to start out with a little critter thing. That is my dining room chair. And there's only one chair with arms like that. And it doesn't slide under the table properly. So as a result of that, the little one could jump on the chair and then jump on the table. And he likes to sit on the table and look out the window. So I covered the chair with a big pillow. It's a spare pillow and it's plastic bag still so that he couldn't jump up. And for a while it worked. But now he decided that that's his favorite place to take naps. I can't seem to win, but he's a cutie nonetheless. All right, I was out in the woods, and can we zoom into these, please? Oh, I was too quick on the zooming. All right, back out. Let's back out. Okay, so I was in the woods because I wanted to see all the cool things that are going on in the woods, and I noticed this tree. It's all on one tree, but this fabulous shelf mushroom type thing is just so beautiful. And the one on the right is way up there. I was taking this picture with the camera as far over my head as I could reach. And these things are hard. They're like wood. They're so hard. I don't know if they started out that way, but they're really beautiful. So let's zoom in. And so that we can see them a little bit better. They have nice rings on them. I don't think they're an indication that the tree's doing all that great, but nonetheless, they are beautiful and just add such a level of interest. Now, the ones on the left, are knee height to shoulder height, but the one on the right, I don't know, that must be 12 feet up in the air, if not more. So they're pretty fabulous. And here's a close-up. This is a better picture of them, just up close. The whole world of different kinds of fungi are just fascinating, and I like to photograph them whenever I see them. And of course, they're also seasonal. Different ones come out at different times of the year. I would say because these are so woody, these are just going to hang around and stay regardless of the time of year once they form. But every time I go in the woods, I see something else cool. And the woods are still kind of rough. There's no question. We need to get back there and do a little more cleaning out. But, you know, each year it gets a little bit better. All right. This was a present from Mary from Warren. And this is trout lily. And it's just so beautiful. And it is a wildflower, and it's native, and it gets very pretty yellow flowers. It's also called dogtooth violet. It's just the foliage, it stays small, it blooms in the spring. And last year, Mary gave me maybe a half a dozen divisions. And by the time I had them, she got them to me, then I had them, and I got them in the ground. I was a little concerned that they weren't going to make it, but they definitely have come back. I think one of them may have produced a flower and I missed it, but I'd say there's about 6 of them that popped up in the woods. And I'm hoping because they're native and they're in the perfect environment for them to grow, that they will spread and add an element of magnificence to the woods. This is my yellow magnolia, and it is blooming, you know, even later than the Susan magnolia, which is a more traditional purpley pink magnolia. But this one is considered a yellow magnolia, and I take the yellow with a grain of salt. Can we zoom in, please? The yellow, in the world of yellow, in the plant world, yellow is very subjective. Their marigolds are yellow, and they tried really hard to make white marigolds. And there are some out there now, but the first white marigold that came out was called white, and it was very, very pale yellow. Compared to the traditional yellow marigolds, gold marigolds, they were very close to white. But compared to, say, a white rose, no, they were not white. And yet the flip side of that is they were trying to also develop yellow lilacs. And the yellow lilacs, because they had white lilacs and trying to get yellow lilacs, when the first yellow lilac came out, it was the same color as the white marigold. So it was really a matter of perspective. If you're trying to go from white to yellow, a very pale yellow is yellow. If you're trying to go from yellow to white, a very pale yellow is white. It's a matter of perspective. This is the yellowest flower of all the flowers on this magnolia, and it's still barely yellow. I would say it's a little more yellow than the yellow lilac was when it first came out, but it certainly isn't like a yellow tulip. Or even a yellow dandelion. It's just very, very pastel. Still lovely. And I really like the hint of pink or purple that's running through a couple of the petals. Next. And this is another picture. So you can see here, it looks even less yellow. As I said, I took the picture of the one that was the most yellow to show you, but as they open, they turn even less yellow. But they're still lovely, and I like the fact that they bloom so much later and are never subjected to any kind of frost damage. So, so this is my yellow magnolia. Oh, I've shown you this picture before. This is that house plant, sea onion, or I'm sorry, pregnant onion. And the botanical name is Ornithologulum caudatum. And I've said, once it starts blooming, it blooms and blooms and blooms. And this is it initially before any of the flowers have opened. And this was a couple of months ago. So moving on. This is it now. And you can see in the picture on the left how long they have gotten. And they've been blooming for a couple months now. So if we could zoom in, you can see that the stalks go up to the ceiling and bend under the roof there, and that the actual flowering stalk is over a foot long. But the picture on the right, I'm showing you, is the end of these. And look, it still has more buds at the tip. So this thing, it's a weird plant. It may not be to everybody's taste, but it has stick-to-itiveness. And it's just, it's really fun because it blooms for months before it finishes. And of course, the whole onion thing at the bottom, that for propagation purposes are also kind of interesting. But the fact that it flowers for months is just kind of neat. All right, this is my orchid cactus, and I'm waiting for these to open, but I'm very pleased with the fact that it's got multiple flower buds on it right now, and the power of spring, of course. Let's zoom in to this, and you can see this is two distinct different buds that you can see. One's on the very tip of the branch and the other one's in the middle of the branch. I think there's at least 2 more flower buds on the plant. So I will try to get a picture of that to show you when they're open, but it's very impressive. And it's a weird plant to begin with. It's not, the plant itself is not magnificent, and it is a cactus. So it's called an orchid cactus because the flowers are so dramatic, I guess. But I'll see if I can't capture a picture of that when it completely opens. And I've shown you this picture in the past before as well. This is the flying dragon. And last week I showed you a picture of the buds. And I was very excited because this is the first year I've ever seen it bloom. Let's zoom into that. And I can show you on the left, that's the picture I showed you last week in anticipation of it blooming. And the flowers are not all throughout the plant. They're mostly just at the ends of the branches. And here it is. The picture on the right shows you it in full bloom. And it's lovely. It's really, it's in the orange family, and it is quite hardy. It's a plant you have to be very careful where you locate, because those spines on that thing are vicious. So mine is, if you look in the picture on the right, you can see a little bit of a wrought iron fence there. And it is in like a little triangular space that is protected by the wooden fence on one side and the wrought iron fence on the other side. The gate to the wrought iron fence swings open and creates a little triangular space behind fences on all sides. So the likelihood of bumping into this plant is very slim. Luckily, it's very slow growing, so it's not going to outgrow that spot for a very long time. And but it's fascinating, and the fact that it's blooming now, you know, makes it even that much more exciting. So, moving on, just things to show you. Let's. This is my dogwood in the woods, and that was actually a volunteer that I moved when we first bought Tiny Farm, when it was just like a little twig sticking out of the ground. It's now probably about 7 feet tall, and on the edge of the woods near the backyard. So when you're in the backyard, you can see it over the fence, but you know, it's there, but it's technically in the woods, and it's blooming. Interesting. This is the middle of April. Generally, native dogwoods bloom around May 1st, and the Kusa dogwood blooms around June 1st. So we are definitely a couple of weeks ahead on that, generally speaking. So moving on, some ferns. Can we? These pictures are small, so let's zoom into this fern. This is ferns that I planted in the woods. Again, not too far from the entrance into the woods and to the side of the path. And they're coming up and they're looking really quite wonderful and quite lush looking. So I'm excited to see how they do. I'm not trying to cultivate the woods. I'm just trying to tame the woods. So I want it to be mostly wild, but I want there to be paths, and I want there to be little areas where it's not just thorny raspberry bushes or wild rose. I want some things a little more tame. And again, you know, I don't mind the wildness of a lot of it, but I also want it to be just a little bit tame. So, and this is an example. And these, I believe these are native. There are many ferns that are native, but they're perfect woodland plants. So moving on. Oh, this is foxglove. I planted them last year and they're coming back nicely, which I'm very pleased with. I had planted some the year before and they didn't come back, but these are going to be magnificent. So I'm very excited about these. Foxglove digitalis is a wonderful semi-woodland plant, and it gets very tall spikes of flowers. And again, a good plant for the edge of the woods. Next. And this is it's a red fern and just coming up now. I'll have better pictures of it. But a lot of the stuff that I did plant to make the woods more interesting last year seems to have survived nicely. And I'm very pleased with that. So we will continue to build on that. And I have a separate slide series on something we've already added this year. Next. Okay. Maybe not everybody likes dandelions. I totally understand that. People that don't want them in their lawns hate them. I don't care. I'm not a lawn person, so I don't mind as they can be mowed. They don't give you poison ivy or any kind of skin irritation. They don't have thorns. I think the white poofy things that emerge as the seed pods, I like them. I still get a kick out of blowing them. But in this particular application, this is the path through the woods. And we get that mowed maybe once a month. It doesn't have to be mowed all the time. But to see that on the path and walk through that, in my opinion, was just lovely. I really enjoyed that experience. So we have a problem? No. Okay. And a close up, the flowers are happy and they're such a pretty shade of yellow. So, you know, you don't have to love them. My grandmother would harvest them and eat them. I personally don't like to eat them. They're very bitter, but they make me smile. So I've included them. All right. This is another swath of wildflowers in the woods. I love how it looks. I think it's beautiful. And it's called garlic mustard. And it can be considered edible. Not that I'd run out and eat it. I think the flowers are adorable. You know, just sweet little white flowers. And look at how thick and lush they are. I think I don't want them everywhere, but I'm not going to touch this swath. I'm going to keep this swath where they're growing up, where they're popping up from seed around the ferns and the foxglove. Yeah, I'll weed them out. But I love this swath. I think it's beautiful. And the foliage can be used to make like a little sauce that I believe has been served with lamb. And also sometimes the very young foliage has been eaten and tossed in a salad. But that doesn't particularly appeal to me. I just like how lush and pretty they look in the woods. Next. Oh, our first asparagus. Yay. Okay. Well, there's more to come, I hope. We're going to have to harvest this one today. I took this picture yesterday towards the end of the day. So we're going to harvest that today. There's a couple more coming up. So by tomorrow, we should have enough for dinner, which is kind of exciting. Moving on. This is the bed we dug yesterday. I dug about half of it. Tommy dug about half of it. And then I tidied it all up. And that is a top onion at the beginning. That's a perennial onion, or sometimes called an Egyptian onion. So that's going to live there. Now that bed is not very wide. And the reason that bed is not very wide is that you can't reach it from the other side because of the fence. So it's about half or a little bit more than half of what I generally make my beds, about 3 feet. This is between 1.5 and 2 feet. And I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to put in there. So I'll either plant today or tomorrow. I want to be able to use the fence So I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe cucumbers or melons. It's what I'm leaning towards, something climbing. The peas are on the other side, so the peas are already in. The peas are doing very well. Should have taken a picture of the peas. Didn't think of that. We'll save that for next week. And this, well, that's the big ugly building behind. And that tree is one of the things that we planted to camouflage the big ugly building. And as you can see, it's getting tall enough. And on the right, I was afraid to get closer to take the picture because I would scare him off. But that's a male cardinal. And he makes me happy just to look at him, that he's in my tree. So is that it? Oh, there's more. Oh, Tommy took this picture. I love this picture. This is along some highway. What highway was it?
280 near Newark.
It was on 280 near Newark. And he took this picture. And I think it's a spectacular shot. It looks like it's little red flowers on the side growing along in a very not warm and fuzzy area for flowers to be growing. And when you get close, they're not flowers at all. They are, what do you call those metal? Rebar. They're rebar with little safety caps on the top. They should use them everywhere. I love them. They look so natural. They have those little curves to them, and they look like little red flowers along the side of the road. I love them. So I just had to share that. So, okay, moving on. This is another picture my husband took in front of a church. I don't know how many tulips that is, but that is a lot of tulips and makes a really good picture. Unfortunately, they're not going to stay looking good forever because you have to leave the foliage on there unless they're going to sacrifice them all. You have to leave the foliage on till it yellows, and it's going to be a sea of yellow foliage before they can cut it all down. And I don't know if they're planning on planting anything else. It was just a drive-by and spectacular for the moment. So thank you for sharing that with us. And this is the cherry tree in its current state. Well, actually, I worked on it last night before, which is since I've taken this picture. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to take any better pictures because it goes up another. It's almost twice as tall as the part that you can see. It goes up to the second floor, goes around the corner of the ceiling there and goes up. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to take any additional pictures. There's already quite a few flowers up there that don't show in this picture. But I would say I'm well more than halfway, maybe almost as much as 2/3, almost, right? About, yeah. So I'm making progress. I try to work on it every day. I skip some days if I'm just too tired from working outside. Sometimes I'll come in and be really tired and I'll crash for a little while and then I'll get up re-energized. And last night I was working on it till about 10 o'clock. So there you go. If I don't stick with it, I'll throw in the towel. Once I stop working on it on a regular basis, I'll forget for a while. So, okay. So are these people? Oh, Rob F says happy Sunday. Oh, somebody's saying that they're hitting the like button for me and that the flying dragon is amazing. Not fiddleheads, round stem versus celery shaped. Not sure what they're asking about. Oh, and somebody said they love dandelions. And we collect seeds for the yard better than bare ground. And asparagus is the 3-year plan with 10 to 15 years of food harvest. Yes, that's absolutely true. Same person saying all kinds of wonderful things here. Okay. So let's give the phone number again. It's 888-399-7344. That's PEGI 7344. And we have 4 open lines. So if somebody chooses to call now, we would be able to get you on the air right away. And it seems my board operator has disappeared, so I'm not sure. So again, let me give the phone number. It's 888-399-7344. And Anne Marie sent me some information about the garden walk which is coming up in Keyport. And Anne Marie, if you would like to call and share that information with us on the air, that would be great. And all right, let's go to the next. Oh, it's Anne Marie calling already. Well, that's good. We could bring up Anne Marie's pictures, please. And then we can go to the phones. Do we have her on the phones yet? She'll be joining us, and then she can tell us about the garden walk in Keyport. We used to have people come on the air when we were doing the garden show at WCTC every year, and then they stopped reaching out to us. But I have been on the garden walk. I have spoken. I've been a speaker there for them in the past, and it is a lovely experience. So if you want to get over there, Anne Marie can give us the details. Anne Marie, are you with us?
I am.
Hey, good morning.
I'm good. Yeah, the Keyport Garden Walk we found by dumb luck. If there's no luck, there's always dumb luck. And it's a lovely, lovely day. You park down by the waterfront in Keyport, and they've got a big gazebo down there, and they sign you up, and they give you this lovely little booklet, which has a map of who is willing to share their garden or their flower box or their whole backyard, whatever they want to let you see. And people, the homeowners are so gracious, and they're just happy to share their gardens, which most of us are. So it's really a great day. And there's always a speaker in the morning on Saturdays, but it looks like there might be a speaker Saturday and Sunday. There wasn't a whole lot of information. But if anyone wanted to Google it, you could go to Keyport, New Jersey Garden Walk 2024.
And what's the date?
It's always the first weekend. It's June 1st and 2nd. It's always the first weekend of June. And this is their 13th annual. So I think I like 13 as a number. That's the baker's dozen. So it's great.
Well, thank you for getting us that information. And June is a really busy time for me, but I would love for us to get over there. Yeah, we went to that. We did. I said, well, you had disappeared when I said that we had gone there and that I had spoken there. But okay, Anne Marie, this is one of the pictures you sent me. And number one, you've got a Christmas cactus blooming. So is this a recent picture?
Yes, it was taken the day we sent it to you, just last week. That's a different Christmas cactus in that it's kind of a salmon color. My others are pink or white or pale pink or yellow. So I was excited to see that starting to bloom, although it had bloomed in November. And the rest of my Christmas cactus is also rebloomed now in March. So I don't know what planet they're on.
Well,
but,
it's because
they were beautiful.
I can tell you went away and kept your house a little cooler. And that triggered them all into blooming again. That's what happens. And it
okay. Yeah. And that big lovely plant on the right side is what I call my Danny begonia, as in Danny Girl's begonia. And it was 1/4 of that size when I got it from her 2 years ago. It grew that big last year. I cut it back, and that's how much it grew this year. And I would like to tell any of your other listeners, it is up looking for a new home. So if you really would love to have this plant, if you got in touch with Peggy, she could get in touch with me, and maybe we can just have a handoff, because it, as you can see, it takes up that entire table, and that's in front of my bay window, which is loaded with plants, if you can see in that left-hand corner. It's just too big for me to deal with, but it is beautiful, and those leaves are just as shiny as they look on there. And it really is low maintenance. So I don't know why I don't love it to death, but it's too big. I want a small one. So I've started a new one.
Okay. I have one of these already, and you saw it recently, and you said yours is better. And you know what?
It is better.
Yours is better.
You want it?
No. The one that I have was covered in flowers. I had probably 10 flower stalks recently. But the arms, the branches are crisscrossing. I've had it longer than you've had yours, and they got really long, and then they doubled back. And when I took a really close look at it yesterday, I realized it's probably got a foot of bare stem at least, but it's all twisted and contorted and overlapping and bending and doubling back. So it's going to need a major overhaul. But I think if I cut it, there's enough coming up close to the base that it will regenerate. It'll look ugly for a while, but it'll regenerate. And then I can possibly propagate the ends. These are actually easy enough to propagate from a single leaf. I have done that in the past to have some available for the plant exchange. But in this case, I think I'll be able to maybe take some cuttings. But it's a beautiful plant. It's called the beefsteak begonia. And it's just, and I've shown the underside of the leaves of this, which the underside of the leaves are very bright red. It's a fun plant. And yes, it does take up space, but it blooms in a minimum of light. Mine is in my greenhouse, but it's not in the sunny part of the greenhouse. It's in the working part of the greenhouse. And it still put out all those flower spikes. So let's look at the next shot. This is another picture of it. And so if anybody, worst case scenario, Anne-Marie, bring it to the plant exchange. I'm sure it'll find a home. There should be one more picture.
I'm bring it in that it can be a little fragile, but it's such an indoor plant that it really couldn't take the sun. It'll, I'm sure, kill it right down. But I did want to say, if you cut that stem off down at the base, it roots from the base. But if I shorten it, it doesn't seem to want to root from halfway up. But when you plant that root with this 12-inch stick with a big, beautiful leaf hanging at the end of it, it does generate a new plant at the bottom. So once that little plant gets big enough, that's what I'm working on right now, plus a medium-sized plant, is I'm going to clip that big, long one off and just start from this nice little, like when a African violet starts a baby next to it, it's like it's doing that, but it's coming off this single stem.
Well, tell me, what is this?
This was a Christmas cactus brought to me by a friend mid-December. It was very white and the middle was pink. Now the white part has gotten a little bit creamier. And I do not have a lot of luck keeping a poinsettia alive. It wants to just, no matter what. And, you know, since you already told everybody that I went away in the winter, I asked my daughter, who has 6 children, if she could possibly babysit this plant.
What's
and
one more
did.
plant?
It's bigger than it's ever been for me as a poinsettia. Maybe it was her and maybe it's a variety, but it is still blooming like crazy. It only has a very few dark green leaves, but it hasn't lost any of what we all refer to as the flower, which I know is not the flower petal, but it's really pretty neat. It's just a small plant. It's only in like a 4-inch pot, but it is just so cute.
We never argue with success, Anne-Marie. Never.
I know. We take it wherever we can.
Yep. And it looks.
Did I tell you that my streptocapella that I cut back and am trying to root are all blooming? I have bottled with water and stems in blooming. It's like crazy here.
Well, we'll just say you're growing in hydroponics, and that'll make it sound official. Well, again, never argue with success. I have about 6 scrawny pots of that, you know, I potted up from rooted cuttings. And I'm debating whether I want to use them at the Ocean Grove house. I put up 4 geraniums that are in blazing sun. I've had the same geraniums for 5 or 6 years. Tommy, how long has it been? It's been a while. And they're looking good and they're going back. But there's one spot on the porch that's completely blocked from sun by a giant oak tree. So 4 of them get good sun and 1 of them is in shade. So I have been putting a purple set creasa, sort of one that looks like a Tradescantia, like a wandering Jew, but it's all purple. Many people are familiar with it. And that has done really, really well, but I'm kind of bored with it. And it makes cute little purple flowers that I like, but you can only really appreciate them close up. So I was thinking maybe I would make a hanging basket out of the Streptocarpus, Streptocarpella, whatever we're going to call them, because that can do really well in the same amount of light. They don't need blazing sun all day. So I think, so I might do that, or I might use them in my planters for the front of Tiny Farm. I haven't decided, but I have a bunch of them. And yeah, they even when they're scrawny looking and not under ideal conditions, they still put out those flowers. They're happy little plants. Only problem I have with them, Anne-Marie, is when they get mealybugs, you're doomed. You just,
I actually had that happen to one this year. You've had said that so many times, and it's never happened. And these are ones that go outside in the summer on we have a front porch that's covered, obviously. And they're fine out there. And then I bring them in and I trim them back, and they're all fairly happy. And I had 2 out of the 4 do that. So they got the gate literally out the door.
It's the fuzzy texture
I'm
of the
struggling
leaves.
to make enough cuttings to make 2 more plants, because I like them on my front porch, because it is a shaded area. And, can they actually tolerate full sun?
I don't think so. I think
I don't think so. I mean, if anybody knows this plant, the leaf is it's a different shape, but it's very much like an indoor African violet. It does not look like an outdoor plant at all, but in the summer it's lovely.
And it's fuzzy, and that's why you can't get rid of the mealybugs. They kind of are protected. You can't, my first line of attack with mealybugs is to wash them away. But with the fuzzy texture of the leaves, they don't wash off. It kind of holds on to the mealybugs and holds on to the eggs. They don't wash off. And so that's the problem with why, and I haven't resorted to using any kind of commercial pesticide.
If we cut them all the way down and left just like a 1-inch stump coming out, would they regenerate from that, or would
I've
that also
tried
be
that,
infected?
and they didn't regenerate well. So
No.
yeah, I did try that. But I don't know if it was the combination of hosing them off with a fierce spray of water and cutting them back. But I've tried different approaches. Once they get mealybug infestation, I've never been able to save them using various techniques. I've never been able to save
Now
them.
that's what I call science projects.
Yeah, for sure. Only failed.
Okay,
science.
well, I'm excited about getting ready for the plant swap. I did have Arthur put together my outside little 4-foot greenhouse, and I have lots of seeds that started to grow already. So I'm so excited.
Well, we will see you. That is May 25th, and that is the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And anybody that wants to come that doesn't know where it is has to reach out to me, and I will give the address at that point. So, but it's always a fun day. It's always a fun day. So it starts at noon, and we ask people to bring 1 food item to share, preferably finger food, and hoping not everybody brings cookies or cupcakes or that kind of thing. But some cookies and cupcakes are okay. I mean, I like cookies and cupcakes. So so that is the plan. And of course, we will provide more information as we get closer. So everything else good with you?
Everything is good. I planted over at church almost 4 dozen hyacinth bulbs on Friday. The bulbs were huge. They were like big Bermuda onions. They're huge. So I put them all in. So, and then they got rained on. So that was good.
That was good. All right. Well, give Uncle Art a hug, and we will talk again soon.
Okay. Be good.
All right. Thanks for
Hi
calling.
to Tommy.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Let's do Janet's dahlias. We'll move on to that. So those of you may be familiar with a bulletin board format called Nextdoor. And there's Nextdoor. I participate in Nextdoor Ocean Grove. There's Nextdoor for just about every town in New Jersey. And you can ask questions like, do you know a good electrician? A good painter? Does anybody know how to divide dahlias? And this is Janet, and she was trying to get some help to find out if her dahlias were viable and to divide them. And she also started a subgroup on Nextdoor called Perennial Lovers, which of course I joined. And when I saw this, I said, sure. It turns out she lives, pretty close to me. And so I said, come on over and we will take a look at your dahlias. Well, as it turns out, they were magnificent. That is a yellow dahlia, and that is very, very viable and very large. That's one of the dinner plate dahlias. And, the tubers come in various sizes. The smaller dahlias, of course, have smaller tubers, and the bigger dahlias have bigger tubers. It makes sense. So this dinner plate dahlia is enormous, and she did a great job overwintering them. They are very solid. They're not dried up. They're not mushy. And you can see there was multiple growing points. So we decided that we could try to divide some of these up for her. And yes, they were very viable. And this is what the dinner plate dahlias look like. They can be the size of a dinner plate. We have grown them in the past. I haven't grown them here, but we've grew them at Blooming Acres. So they're very exciting to grow. They have the giant ones have a limited number of flowers. The smaller ones will, if you keep cutting them back, produce more and more. The giant ones usually only get about 8 or 10 per plant, but you only need one in a vase. I mean, really, that's all you need. It's show stopping. So definitely it was worth trying to manipulate these. So that's me trying to pull them apart and trying to, separate them as gently as possible, kind of slow pressure, trying to pull them apart. So I didn't want to have to cut them if I didn't have to, but I was using all of my strength. I mean, I was pulling gradually. I wasn't trying to rip them, but I was trying to separate them. And it was quite a challenge. Next. So I did separate some. And then after that, I threw in the towel and started cutting them. And I used the reciprocating saw to divvy them up. And of course, that worked. And this is what we got. There's actually, that was my haul. She offered to share them with me for helping her. And so the two big ones on the bottom are the giant yellow ones. And there's a couple of purple ones. And then there's some small little pieces. Actually, one of the small little pieces got carried away by a small dog. I was outside working, planting them in the garden, and somebody carried them away. Actually, he carried several of them away. I was able to find the ones of significant size, but one of the tiny ones disappeared. But I did plant them, and I'm very excited. I planted them in front of the hardy bananas, but these are definitely viable hunks. If you order them from a catalog company, sometimes all you're going to get is one of those tubers. So these were great. And of course, nothing has come above ground yet because, I planted them and then I mulched them. But I'm very excited. I haven't grown giant dahlias in years. So with a little luck, we'll have some really beautiful ones come midsummer. All right, next. Again, let me give the phone number because we have, and I want to thank Janet. I don't know if she's listening. I told her about the show, but for sharing. And she went home with, at least 3 times what she gave me. She had tons of them. And we did really well with the dividing. And once we used the reciprocating saw, it didn't really damage them that much. I mean, definitely, we had to get rid of some of the tubers, but for the most part, it was the best option. So that was fun. Okay, so the number here is 888-399-7344. Would love to hear from anybody that may have some questions. I hope Danny Girl is listening because we want to go over her camellias. She sent me some fabulous pictures of camellias. So we'll wait for her to give us a call and then we'll try to get her on the air. In the meantime, let's go over to the Sarcococa. Okay, now you may remember last fall I went to a fabulous garden center up in Chatham with my brother, with Uncle Matt. And I was so excited because I found this plant, which is called a sarcococa. Its common name is sweet box. And I only knew it as sarcococa for many, many years, but it does have a common name, sweet box. And it's sort of a ground cover. It's evergreen. It gets maybe 18 inches tall max, but it produces the most wonderful white scented flowers in the spring. Now, we had them at Blooming Acres right outside the front door, and the front door was sort of recessed. And so it created like a little cave around the front door. It was very dark. And we had this growing, among other things, but we had this growing. And when it was in bloom, if you open the front door, which of course the front door opened in, and the actual opening of the door would draw in some of the outside air. And the room, the breezeway, would just be filled with this sweet fragrance from the, and I loved it. I would leave the door open and let that scent come in if it wasn't too cold, because it always, was early spring. And of course there was no salvaging them. That whole part of the house burned, and there was nothing that we could salvage from that part of the gardens. And it was one of the sad things that happened as a result of the house burning. And I tried to find more of this, and I couldn't. Plus, it needs shade. And we took down all the trees around the house at Tiny Farm so that we could landscape it the way we wanted. And I kept looking for this and couldn't find it. But then last fall we found it. And I took that pot and I divided it, and it was very healthy. And I divided it into 5 pieces and 5 divisions and potted them up, and overwintered, buried the pots outside in the vegetable garden to overwinter. And come spring, this is potted up before we moved them out, and they look pretty good. And then we moved them out to the vegetable garden, and there they are. And they, the one we had already pulled out, the big one in the front we had pulled out. It was actually, where that wood is down in the lower right-hand corner. Tommy added those railroad ties for me, and it was sunk in the ground in that spot. But you can see the 5 of them made it through the winter beautifully. And so we pulled them out, and I decided I wanted to add them to what was going on in the woods. Next. And this is them pulled out, lined up, ready to go. And then we moved it. And this is where I wanted to put them in the woods. Now you can see a lot of skinny things sticking up there. And that's mostly different kinds of some wild rose and some brambles. And, but believe it or not, it's fairly sunny. There's, the light comes through in that spot. It's open enough that it definitely gets a little bit of sun. But of course, once all the leaves come out, it'll be shadier. And I popped them in the ground. So that's 3 in one spot. And then I took the biggest one with the smallest one and put that, off to the side. It kind of left a little path down the middle so that, we could get to the further back parts of the wooded area. And this is kind of an overview of it. So I did pull out a lot of the stuff I didn't want, and there they are. So I'm hoping that they will spread and eventually connect and just be part of the tamer part of the woods. So let's see. Oh, good. We've got Danny Girl calling. So let's go right to the slides that Danny brought us, and we can say hi to her. Good morning, Danny. How are you?
Good morning, Peggy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You sent me fabulous pictures, and I imagine that they're probably finishing up blooming down there at this point, because you were there a couple of weeks ago. But this guy, Dr. William Ackerman, he had a thing for camellias.
Well, I would too.
So he
They're just amazing.
they are
Yes.
they are really beautiful, and I'm glad that he did what he did. So at the end of the slideshow, I added that other what do we call these things that, they're kind of scattered around, and we took pictures of them, these little displays of information.
I think it's called display board.
Display board. So this is the first display board, and this is Dr. William Ackerman himself. But the last one, that I'm not going to read it for everybody, but people that are watching the show, after the show is over, you can go back to the archive and take the time to read the whole thing, because it's well worth reading. But in a nutshell, there was one variety that nobody really liked all that much, because it was not particularly showy compared to the other ones. And then they had 2 cold winters in a row, and they lost almost all of the camellias, because they're really southern plants, except for this one that was not affected. And it was much more, so it may not have been as showy, but it was tough. And that's what he used to create 50 different varieties that are much more cold hardy. And many of the varieties that we see blooming in central Jersey are as a result of Dr. Ackerman's work. So let's move through some of these pictures. Danny, you want to say anything about these pictures? Because you did the photography, and they are just stunning. They're just gorgeous.
Well, technical difficulty. I'm on my cell phone and I can't see the
Oh,
slide.
okay. Well then,
But like I say, it is just amazing. These bushes are tall, about 8 to 10 feet tall, some
Wow.
of them, and they're just scattered in this area they call the camellia garden. And it's just, I'm just like walking through. I try to find the most, magnificent one to take picture. It is just fabulous. And this is only the first one of the garden that I visited. I was started in Washington, D.C., then I went to North Carolina. So I started with the U.S. National Arboretum, and then I went to North Carolina's Arboretum, and then I end up at in Durham, the Sarah P. Arboretum. They just have enormous amount of flowers, and I can't take enough pictures.
okay. Well then, since you can't see
you.
them, we're going to flip through them pretty quick.
Right.
So this one is pink, a small pink one, it's not fully open, but what a sweet shade of pink, and a white, very open cup-like one. And then a double, deep pink, and almost red, and then a slightly more rosy one. They're just beautiful. Oh my gosh. This one is definitely a double. And then this other one looks like a bomb type with a whole cluster of curly petals in the center. And we looked into this. I asked you these 2 look very similar, but you went back and checked your records. These are 2 different varieties of camellia.
Correct.
You said to me that some of them, that they were like 7, 8 feet tall. You remember you and I went and we picked up some camellias. You got one. I think I got 2. Maybe I even got 3, or maybe I got one someplace else. But it was very interesting, because I have the 3. I have 2 on one side in front of the front porch, and 1 on the other side in front of the front porch. And interestingly, the one that would be in the middle, it's not really in the middle, it's way off to the side, but in the middle of the 3, grew so much faster, so much taller. It was almost twice the height of the other 2. And of course, they were all the same size when I planted them. But Danny, this was very unfortunate. The raccoons that got into my chimney last year used that camellia to climb up to get to the roof of the porch. And then once they were on the roof of the porch, they went straight up to the chimney and down into the chimney. And they broke almost half of it off before we got the situation under control. And and of course they broke the branches that were closer to the porch, which is the side that gets no sun. So I don't know if they're ever going to completely recover. So the one that was taller was the one that got damaged. We did prune it and clean it up, and hopefully, it will recover. But I thought it was kind of interesting that the growth rate of them was so different. And, each variety has its own way. Let's go on to the rest of the pictures. This one is a deep rose, but the one on the right is, I don't even know. It's a real, like a bubblegum pink, but it's edged in white, and it's got the poofiest center. The anthers, there's just a gazillion of them, and they're just one more beautiful than the next. And then finally, we have the display board that talks about the damage that was done in the 70s, and the one variety, La Chon Snow, I believe I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but Lushan Snow, Lushan Snow. And this is the one, and you can see it's not as dramatic as the ones that we were just looking at, but it's tough. And that toughness has been incorporated into over 50 varieties that were developed by Dr. Ackerman. So we owe him a huge amount of gratitude for doing that, and Danny for taking all these pictures and telling us about this. The history is just as interesting as the plants themselves. So there you go. So thanks, Danny girl.
No problem. If is it possible for me to ask you 2 questions about what's
no
happening
questions
in my garden?
No questions allowed. No. Of course you can ask questions. That's what I'm here for. What's up?
So my Maximilian sunflowers,
Yes.
the new shoots are popping up. I have probably at least 100 of them.
Yes.
Scattered all over in the area.
Yes.
So when would be a good time for me to pull some out? I really can't use 100.
No, absolutely
in
not.
my tiny little yard.
No, just yank them. Go out the sooner the better. Just yank them out. You can do it today.
Okay.
Just keep the ones that the better sooner rather than later. Get them out.
Okay.
Okay. And if you want to pot up a couple to give away, that would be fine. Not necessary, because I'm going to tell people if they want to dig any up out of my yard, they can take as many as they want. But by that time, it's going to be harder to transplant them because they'll be more mature. So if you did want to pot up a couple of them to bring for the plant exchange, that would be good. Not necessary, but good. I do love them. They're wonderful plants. They do spread. So, just yank them out, and don't even feel guilty. Just yank them out.
Right. I knew that because I didn't do that last year. So I'm like, holy moly. When I came home, I was like, they're getting out of control here. Spread like a wildflower. How's that?
Yes, they are. They're native. They are a wildflower.
Right.
And, they have little, if any, insect or disease problems. They're very reliable. And they bloom at a time of year when the whole rest of the world is slowing down, and they're, coming into their peak season. So they have a lot of advantages. They do spread, maybe more than is desirable, but they're easy enough to pull out. So, not that big a deal. Just yank them and we should be good.
Tell Sarah.
Okay. So I actually have success in starting the Mexican petunia. Mexican petunia. I have about 6 or 7 seedlings that they're doing beautiful, much, much better than last year. I was just wondering when will be a good time for me to put them in the ground.
They are very cold sensitive. So I would wait. Wait until May 15th. I have 6 potted up that I rooted from cuttings, and they're doing really well. But I'm not going to move them out for a while yet.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. I will, do the sending out the Maximilian ASAP after the show, and then wait till in about a month to put the
Sounds like a
between
plan.
us.
Okay, Danny girl.
Okay.
Always a pleasure to hear your voice. You have a great day. And
You too.
we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks for calling. All right. Bye-bye
Bye.
now. All right.
Okay,
Apparently,
bye-bye.
we had a call from Sarah, who she threw in the towel a little bit early, but that's fine. If you would like to call, I would be happy to still answer your question if you want to give us a call. Haven't had Sarah call on the air before, so it would be particularly fun to hear from her. And it's only 11 o'clock. Why don't we do something to fill in the time in case, oh, is that her? Somebody I saw blinking. Yes, no. Okay. Well, let's do how about the little video? Can we do the little video? Let's do that because that's not too long and that'll give Sarah a chance to call back. Pruned, hard, shaped, and fertilized and left outside. I also supplemented their pine cones at the base, which really helps to keep. Let's get to the beginning of that. Okay. These are all the plants that I've pulled out of the greenhouse that will live outside for the summer. We're keeping a close eye on nighttime temperatures just in case we get a frost overnight, but I just needed room in the greenhouse for all my seedlings. So this is my fig, and this is a lemon tree, and this is an orange tree. This is a brugmansia. Looks pretty awful at the moment, but guaranteed it'll resprout and be just fine. The ever famous Tibocina, and the two hibiscus. These have all been pruned, hard, shaped, and fertilized and left outside. I also supplemented their pine cones at the base, which really helps to keep the cat and maybe squirrels out of digging in the pots. So it really feels like spring is coming. All these are looking good. And hopefully I can show you a picture of them all in a couple of weeks where they're all covered in buds. I'm going to add that we did check the weather and they were outside for a couple of weeks without any problem, but last night it was predicted to go below 40. And I think it said 39, and that's my cutoff. So my poor husband had to move all those big pots back into the greenhouse last night and to protect them. And it looks like the next couple of days, nighttime temperatures are going to drop again. So it's not very convenient because they're right in the middle of all the pathways, because that was the only place to put them. And I need to get out there and water. So I'm going to be kind of maneuvering my way around the pots, which is not easy, but they need to stay in for a couple of days. And I think after that, they should be good. Where we are, I checked on the last frost-free date, and I actually found the date of April 15th, which I question that. I know we're definitely significantly warmer here than we were at Blooming Acres up in, East Windsor. But I think April 15th just is a little early to be absolutely certain that we're frost-free. But they are, looking good. And I know that they still look scrawny, but there's green buds all over all of those plants. So in another week or so, I'll take more pictures and show you how they've all recovered nicely. So I guess Sarah decided she didn't want to call back. Well, that makes me sad.
Next week.
But you can always call back next week because we will be here next week. We are here every week. And for those of you who want to go to the archives and read that interesting bit of information about the camellias, because it really was a good story, we are archived on YouTube, and just look for YouTube and go to Garden with Pegi and you click on it and you can see all the old shows. And so you can go back and take the time to read all of that information about the camellias that Danny provided. So there's so much going on, so much going on. We're all very busy, and every day there's something new and exciting and different out in the garden. So enjoy that. It's a time of everything coming alive and sharing its beauty. So this is a good thing. I will be here next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a good one. Bye-bye.